All order. Okay.
Are we gonna do our call to order?
Yes, please.
All right. Do we have any citizen comments? Anybody in the
No.
audience, any emails? Nope. All
No.
right. So on to discussion items, A, public transportation and CDBG funding. So we're going to discuss opportunities through the Community Development Block Grant to extend hours and locations of public transport.
So I should preface this to say that Hannah Lickey asked me to put this on the agenda, specifically CDBG and transportation, because we had previously been discussing ways to get after hours weekend transportation. That's been a couple of our months discussion. So I didn't ask them to prepare anything specifically, but just to be here in case you had questions about CDBG or transit. So.
That's why they look like they're captured and hauled in.
I mean, I guess I would start to say, Melinda, can CDBG funds be used for transportation?
Yes.
In what manner or means could they be used?
So, CDBG goes through a cycle of funding and we offer that funding for, competition application. And so that's gonna happen probably in March. And so, whoever might want to submit an application for that funding would do that in March. The CDBG funds have to be used for low income, or a light area or a, urgent need. So for the low income national objective, we would assume those that use the transit, services are low income. We could base it on, proof, having everyone sign income papers that, say whoever uses the bus is low income, but we can also use the, just the assumption that those owns the transit system in low income. There would be a proving process.
So if
Can I ask a clarifying question? So March, applications are for $20-25.
It's actually $20-24, but yeah, we'll get them in, yes. Projects would be assumed to start in August 2025.
I'm confused. The application would have been made in 2024, the funds come out in 2025, or the applications for 2024 are made in 2025?
That's correct.
This sounds federal.
Yes. The funding is a year in arrears.
Okay, is there a limit?
Our limit, so, the city receives about 250,000. We have a 15% cap on public services. So, that would be a limit for if it was a service project. If it was a capital project, then the limit would be what kind of money you have available.
Does that mean 250,000?
Yeah, that would take away from any other programs that we do with CDBG.
What other programs do we have currently that we know will be funded with CDBG?
So we have historically funded, home repair projects. About last year it was about $80,000. We also are funding a couple housing projects. We've done multiple service type projects. So the problem with public service is, it has to be an increasing program or, like a new or increasing. So
Above and beyond the existing.
yes.
I don't know what that means.
So the funding would not be continuing year after year. We would have to find a way to sustain it. If it's a new program, that program would have to sustain itself year after year. You wouldn't be able to use CDBG year after year.
Yeah, I have a potential use. Because we have curb cuts that the city has done a spectacular job job of getting a lot of them in. There are a lot of missed components to that are singular in purpose, and I can identify quite a few of them. That were just, for whatever reason, couldn't be done as part of that project, like I'm paying. 21st, not so much, they did very good job at first. But there's, and like some of these curb cuts, like one in particular, is just on thing, flat dangerous. Because you have the diagonal intersection and you have the curb cut, which really should be kind of around the corner, so you're not in Thane traffic. It actually is right there on Thane. For you to use it, you have to go into vehicular traffic on Thane and then come up it. So I can think of at least 10 to 15 that we could localize, and that would seem like it would be a capital and would fit into it. And I'm only gonna be here for 2 weeks, and it would take someone like me to identify where those are, which I'd be happy to in 1 week, if we were gonna do something.
Identify that's in a low.
It's right where the transit serves on all the places. And it's transit related. And is there any place in Lewiston that would not fall within that categorization you have,
There actually is.
such as?
Well, it's very specific. It has to meet the 51% LMI,
What's an LMI?
the low to moderate income ratio based on HUD's little low income map. So a specific area, we would go to the HUD map to identify what that income ratio is.
So if this was transit related, if it was actually a bus thing, you'd have the assumption that it's all low income.
So those types of projects would definitely be based on how the proposal reads and what that justification is. Because we don't want to just say, well, even with writing on the bus and that presumption, I would still try to find some kind of proof that shows that factor, not just saying, well, most of the time, or we would want to base that on some kind of an assumption.
Eric, I think the best way to go forward with something like that is for us to look at what we would have in the way of transit dollars and grants from that perspective, because CDBG funds can match transit
Well, that's-
funds. And so that would be like the best possible and the best use of CDBG funds for the area.
It would
I
seem
can't say
like,
that the funding's happening this year. I think it's the next year.
well, let's say politics on this. Who are you competing with for the CDBG money? If you took all of it, who would be screaming?
Well, you might not need to take all of it.
Well, I'm just saying if you did.
Yeah, and I don't know, have you made commitments to continue your, help with housing and other things? How does the commitments work with CDBG?
So, every year, it's new commitments based on those applications.
Other applications?
Yes,
So we know you must have applications that come in every year,
that's correct.
and those are,
There is a ton of different, service providers. Interlink is one. The Green Apple Project, the Salvation Army, the Boys and Girls Club.
so not that many are doing capital improvements, they're doing operating expense. Is that correct assumption?
So more than half of our funding for this program year is going towards capital projects.
Okay. So this issue of these kind of forgotten spots, and also like you won't have an intersection, but you'll have a T. And it's a horrible situation to have because you want to cross, but you have this horrible link and you cannot just go across. So it would seem like we have CDBG funds that we're in a good position to kind of say, let's do this. How can the Disability Advisory Commission even get involved in this?
I think that's a discussion amongst you, and I think the topic on the agenda is transit, so.
Do we have authority? We have to make a recommendation to the mayor, and the mayor makes a recommendation to council. We have no, we're advisory only. So is it something that is an awkward position for the city when the city's asking for the money that it's actually going out?
So any project for CDBG is gonna go through the application process. And so any department within the city would then apply. So if community development had a project or transit had a project, they would all submit an application and be rated along with all the other applications that came in.
So this would be, in my mind, an application made by transit, in which we were supporting it or asking for this type of thing. Is that feasible?
For the curb cuts that you're talking.
Just for the missing curb cuts that aren't on any particular plan or won't be in any particular branch. And they do exist, and it's on the routes that we've already planned and are doing things. It's like we have one thing at the orchards, there's 3 blocks of sidewalk on, I think it's gravel. Where if we have that 3 blocks, we actually have a thing to Brighton Canyon connection, and you can totally avoid Brighton, which is a killer road. No one's used it, I think, except me, just to find out just how horrible it is. So it would have to be involved with transit, because otherwise we have to go to the mayor and then to the council to get permission to even do well, we can do the recommendation. But we have no authority to do it, right?
Just regarding the ability to extend hours and locations for public transportation, am I hearing you correctly that if we were to try to use this kind of to help put a Band-Aid on it for a short time, we would still need to have some funding in the future to back up whatever extensions we want to do in the future? So it really would just kind of help get us kind of started if we were to fill out the applications, et cetera, but it wouldn't be able to stand anything up in the long term.
And that would definitely be looked at when the projects are judged.
Mhm.
Typically, from a transit perspective, if it's not sustainable source of funding, they'll look at capital projects instead, because that's a one-time shot.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you have to come up with the funding every single year, so it's a little bit harder to do a one-timer with service projects.
Could we even use the bus system and the drivers to function with that?
So, I want to be really upfront about our service. You know, the city does a great job in giving benefits, but we don't pay bleeding edge dollars. So oftentimes we get drivers that have other sources of income. Maybe they had a military pension and they're older. So I want to be really frank about the fact that a lot of our drivers don't like driving even the afternoon shift, let alone driving in the evening. So I think we have a really difficult time extending our service as it stands today with the drivers that we have today. We're having our own issues sustaining till 7 p.m. at night. So I think it would be very difficult for us, to be really honest. I also don't think it would be as cost effective as if you sought maybe an Uber or Lyft. Certain drivers, maybe you buy a van, that's a capital project. You can buy an ADA accessible van. Maybe Interlink would sign up for it and then hire drivers that are willing to work at night. I just think it would be more expensive and difficult for our service to extend into the evening.
That would be my assumption because of all the cost allocations and everything else.
Yeah, and then you also have to have someone on call, you know, from a city perspective, ready to rescue if the vehicle gets stuck on the road or what have you. So it's not just the driver and not just the dispatcher. And maybe you could look at a cab service that's willing to operate in the evening.
Of the two things on the topic, to me, a more feasible one is the possibility of that capital improvement with the missing curb cuts, which fits into our master plans and everything else. The after hours, who's gonna own a van and complications associated with that? It's like, it would be better to recruit someone else to make an application to do that than for us in the city or whatever else to do it.
I can see what's gonna happen is the firefighters and the ambulances are gonna be responsible for some of this. And I mean, that's obviously not the most cost-effective way to handle the situation.
Yeah. Doesn't change though, if we use their services. Like if you're gonna use a bus, we're gonna have to actually pay for the partial use of that bus. And if it's a driver, we're gonna have to, I mean, those all have to be allocated out in a portion to this grant. And the complications from that are just saying, no, don't touch it. But getting like Interlink to do it or something, I don't know if the city would put in a grant, but I think it'd be better if someone else put in the grant. And I think by a long shot, a lot less hassle. And you don't have to deal with some of the issues of what wage you're gonna pay, et cetera else. But I agree with you. It would be, I just make a recommendation or make a motion that we investigate with transit the thought of making a CDBG grant application for the missing curb cuts on our
PDA transition plan?
well, the ADA transition plan along the identified primary routes. So that's a motion.
So your motion is to do an investigation into, is that what I understand?
To actually put together a grant for that purpose with CDBG.
And Eric, you're expecting us to execute on that, right?
Yes,
We'll have to see where that falls into our capital improvement.
there we go.
Doesn't that sound like more public works?
Public Works is fine.
Because we have several capital projects going on right now, so maybe,
So it's Public Works.
you're right.
In terms of the grant process, would
Leverage.
these various sites have to be identified in a grant application? Or are you guys just going to give a bunch of money for sites to be identified in the future?
I would say go identify them now
So where does that list exist?
in my head at the moment.
Oh, okay.
If you go out and use them, you know where they're at.
Then you might be the grant writer. I mean,
No,
you
I'm not
know,
gonna write a grant.
unless there's a list somewhere.
Well, I got 2 weeks to make a list,
Right.
which I could do.
I would suggest that we just kind of table the conversation right now, but I do think that you should get that list
Yeah.
together.
I'm not gonna do it unless we're gonna have a focus plan for it.
Understood.
And from a transit perspective, if we were counting on obtaining the transit grant, it would have to be in relationship to the route. So I would have to make sure that every single
They're on
location.
the route.
I understand what you're saying. I just need to fit into the grant parameters is all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it's on our master plan, it's within the existing routes. And it's like, even though we've had curb cuts put in, there are ones that were missed for what reason, I do not know. But I knew that they have a danger component to them. And I know that there's at least 5.
I certainly believe you on that.
4,000 piece, go ahead.
I certainly believe you on that. And I think that it would be really smart for us to get those on and Matt be able to look at them and present them with more.
I'm gonna be here 2 weeks and I'm gone for a couple of months.
Okay.
So if you're gonna do a CDBG, I mean, it's either do them now or not.
It just sounds like we're probably not
Does
gonna
the
be able to do that.
grant, have a use it or lose it deadline?
We can set it up for up to 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm still having, even with my speakers all the way up, I'm still having a difficulty hearing. So are we going to just put this on discussion for next meeting as well to,
Specifically, the curb cuts and things like that, I wanted to kind of loop back to whether or not we can. Do you guys have any recommendations for how we could possibly tap into those funds to be able to help find a way to get transportation for low-income people mostly, who are being served after hours mostly, being discharged after hours often, with nowhere to go or no way to get there and no people to get them there. That's the problem that we see. We would like to be able to help find a way to get a long-term solution for that. It's not a huge market. It's not going to be cost effective in any way at any time because there's no return on this investment other than the fact that we know that our citizens are safe. Do you guys have any input or suggestions that could help move us in the right direction?
As putting a grant together and then having it, go through CDBG
Potentially.
process.
Potentially, or outside the box thinking, I mean, the problem is here. We've got lots of humans in the room to help see the problem and think outside the box to see if we can address the problem.
Yeah, there's several ways you can do it. You could look as Interlink is set up from a volunteer driver perspective. But then that's problematic because volunteer drivers have their own lives, and if they're not employed, they can easily say no. Right? So then you can't count on them when somebody calls in. To find someone that, and you're talking about round the evening, right? From 7 PM, say to 7 AM in the morning. So then you're looking for folks that are either available all that time or going to be employed all that time. So it's actually a bigger ask than it seems like it is at first. So then you're looking at probably 2 full shifts every night for just a few rides. So it would be great if it was an on-call driver, so suddenly they get called and then they go out but finding those kind of folks are very difficult. So do I have a lot of great ideas for you that would magically work? I don't.
Yeah, I understand, that's.
sorry, well, I do have, would it be possible to do a grant wherein if somebody was able to prove that they had financial limitations or a disability, that if they were to call a cab or call an Uber, that that company could then charge the city?
Subsidized.
Cover the expense.
So the only issue that I saw there from a subsidy standpoint is then you're gonna need to have a vehicle that could accommodate a lift, wheelchair, et cetera. And as of, I think Interlink, one of your board members might have an ADA accessible van, but outside of what we have, I don't know of anything else in the valley. The one individual I know who ran Valley Mobility, who's a retired fireman, they had stopped their service. So unless you sign up with Transportation Solutions, that's a Medicare provider, and then their rides are more expensive, but that is one way to go. Maybe Transportation Solutions. Sorry, Eric. That was
Okay, I'm just waiting to be recognized by the chair.
Eric?
Let's get to the practical point. Would transportation even do the grant? Besides giving ideas, what you're gonna need is someone to write the grant. And it's not gonna happen here at this committee level, I don't believe.
So I will say, if you're looking for service and you're gonna put a service, application in versus a capital application, I think the capital application will be viewed more highly because you're only gonna be able to fund this then with CDBG funds for 1 year. And then you're gonna have to go and find a source for funding. And I don't think funding's gonna get easier to come by as we go forward. I could be wrong. But that will be part of the, I shouldn't speak for you, Melinda, but I think that'll be part of the assessing which applications get funded. I know in transit, if you can't sustain it, don't ask for the funding for it.
Mhm. That makes sense.
Because then you've offered a service and then you take it away.
You're also wasting
And
money.
that's heartbreaking.
You're wasting it because you use it 1 year and then you're not standing it up long enough to actually utilize it. So it makes sense.
And sometimes it takes a full year to communicate about the benefit. It
Mhm.
takes a while. Any thoughts?
I have a motion on the table that hasn't had a second, nor has it died.
Well, are we able to make a motion if it's just a discussion item?
It is not listed as an action item.
So the motion is to make it as an action item the next meeting.
Did you want to put on the next meeting an action item to discuss curb cuts? CDBG grants for curb cuts? Is that what, or after hours transportation?
Think of the practical application, how to do this within the rules.
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify what you wanted to actually.
You know, I think it's a good idea. I appreciate what you're saying. It's like, I could just request we put it on the next meeting as the motion that was made, but just as an agenda item to turn it into an action item.
Okay.
And I will go out in that condition case then and identify the ones that I know about. It just take me 2 days or something like that, but so that we would have a list, and then the actual practical part there is who's gonna do it, and I like the leverage component. If we can tie that into either public works or transportation, leverage component, I think we're kind of like,
So
I
I'm
think
not
we put it-
signing up for it till I see where they are.
that's fine,
But I trust you know what you're saying.
yeah. But my complaints have over the years filled in many of them. It's like the fairgrounds, being able to get on the sidewalk and such. So once the city has become aware, the county, they've been more than willing to do what they can do.
Could, in theory, does the CDBG grant be utilized for a one-time purchase of such a vehicle as an ADA compliant van?
That's considered a capital purchase.
And then if
Program.
I think I got some ideas that we could down the road think about. That's just a possible hypothetical. I will continue to think on that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, by the way.
Practical ones I immediately come up with that is who's gonna own it? Who's gonna insure it? Where's the liability gonna be at?
A lot of problems.
Yeah,
I see those, but one of the biggest problems is that $90,000 van that needs to be purchased at some point too. So,
I think we've covered this ground before, but you don't lease out the city vans.
We don't have those, we have buses.
Well, buses.
Okay.
Is there a rule, is there a law against that, or you just choose not to?
One, nobody's asked. I know that,
I
Post
asked,
used
I
to.
asked once before.
And we said no from an insurance standpoint. So our risk manager would come to us and say, yeah, no, that's not advisable.
Even if
So
the
I don't know,
driver-
actually, Mark, I don't know how to answer that, other than it doesn't make sense from our insurance standpoint. They're not a city driver,
No,
so.
no. Well, that would be one option, but then also if the other entity who's leasing the van is leasing the driver, or the school district doesn't. You can rent a school bus with a school bus driver to take a big group of people.
You know what, Mark, I
on
don't know,
tour.
because we haven't done it.
I think, I'll have to check, but I don't think you can lease out federally purchased vehicles.
Oh, yeah. That's,
I just go the allocation issues again, just.
Yeah,
I guess school districts buy their yellow buses not with federal money then. All right, thank you, but they don't have wheelchair lifts, that's,
They have
ADA
their
buses.
oh, you're right, they have the small, the little bus, yeah, short bus.
So that's actually a viable
Well, then that
approach
might
too.
help.
out of curiosity, was this issue of not having transportation for people after hours, sounds like it's somewhat specific to the hospital?
It often occurs there, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Have the hospitals been approached?
It's a wonderful question.
They could use
Yeah.
CDBG funds to purchase said equipment?
I was kind of thinking along those lines as well.
That's a very good.
And then they could actually have the responsibility, which I think they should,
Well,
to
and
return their clients to their
Maybe
homes.
medical does, if you need an
Right.
organization that does have a transportation
Yeah,
department. I didn't mean.
And theoretically, they're already operating at these times because they're discharging patients at this time. So
Exactly.
not to draw too many parallels there, but, and assumptions, but, that might be a way to approach that.
How would you coordinate that? I mean, to get the, because we're just an idea bank right here with no authority. But if it was gonna happen, it'd be approaching the hospital, I can't remember, I don't remember what his name is, Adam something. CEO, pretty decent guy. Talking to them about making the grant. And we could support it as a recommendation here. But then the city wouldn't be making it, jumping into any liability issues or et cetera with that, so. That may be a viable.
And I only ask that because I've seen a hospital do that exact service with that
Makes-
type of
Yeah.
equipment before, so
Well,
it's,
Griffin Hospital,
yeah, exactly.
closer to home. That kind of money would get the hospital a van. It wouldn't cover any of the other costs.
But
They at least
they,
then have a van, because they're gonna have this problem continually.
and they have staffing 24/7, and someone can be allocated as part of their duties to run this when it's there.
You don't need a CDL.
Hypothetically,
Yeah,
then you'd have gas and you'd have insurance and all of that. They have not seen fit to be interested in spending any money. They just identify the problem and they want someone else to solve it.
well, they have the problem, I mean, it's their problem that generates most of the issues, like, okay, we're not gonna put you in, you're released, and then there's no one to pick them up and there's nowhere to go.
So if they release them during our, during the time that that's another thing too. They could
They've been
release
told
them,
that.
yeah, during the day.
They've been told that. It's the after hours.
They also are short-staffed and trying to do what everybody else is trying to do, which is defer the cost to somebody else.
Don't have as much.
So I get it, but
Can you work with them?
I genuinely appreciate your guys' input though, and we have a
You
place
have
to kind of
be
start.
in the city of Lewiston to apply, correct? Constance probably can't hear when we turn. this
Citizens
way.
of,
Within the city of, or you serve people within the city, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
How would we make this happen kind of now? We need, like here, I think no one's gonna object to us doing a recommendation. Maybe to the mayor and council saying, yes, we support this in concept. Which that we can do, but getting together with the hospital to kind of make it work and do the understanding. Can anyone do that, like the chair or whatever else, or?
I am currently kind of at my max for available time to do things of this nature at this time.
I think you're probably not the best person to do it. We have Mark and apologize short term, but we have people here who are extremely knowledgeable. And can maybe understand the political issues. To maybe get this going even this year. Is that viable? I don't think this is an action item for this committee. It's just, do people want to take on that task?
I will tell you that I've got some things that I'm taking on and I'm gonna be digging in on my end because I do have some ideas, but I'm not prepared to bring those to the table at this time.
Okay, is it something that we can help with us, the recommendation component?
I don't have any recommendations unfortunately at this time.
Okay. So we're just sitting on it until this next month, and then I'm gonna look at curb cuts.
I think that's probably a good
I
idea.
think that's what we should stick to for this upcoming time. Melinda, you said, or, Melinda, right?
It's,
Yeah. You said the next round starts in March, but when's the deadline?
so I haven't established those yet, so
Okay.
I'm kind of just going by memory that, you know, we'll do that in February or March, and then we'll close it down and with our, I think we actually hear from what our allocation is in May. So, grants would then be awarded in July.
So there's some time.
Is there a website associated with this?
Yeah, if you go to the city website, and search on CDBG, it's able to find all the information that way.
Okay, thank you.
Give me time.
Well, in the interest of time, I know that we have some stuff we do have to get through. Right? The,
Minutes?
not just the minutes, but to review our powers and duties and then establish goals. Nikki had sent out an email talking about a periodic review.
But we can't talk about that today, apparently.
Well, Constance, for the periodic review,
It's not on these.
we've been instructed to have it specific on an agenda. And I think our discussion items today don't fit close enough with that topic. So I think we can still talk about these goals and review our duties and powers, but I think next month, then we can clearly say that we're going to discuss Chris, the actual review process. And then we have until the 20th of March or something like that to submit it. So
Right, so I thought, so if we were to do this, the next time we can do what your email
Yeah.
stated so that we can get it in on time.
yeah, and I think some of this may help you in next month to talk about the review.
Yes. Well, do we have a system update? And thank you to those who came to talk today. I can't see any of you, but thank you.
We can't either.
I don't have a big update on the optimize. I did put together a list. I've shared it with leadership because I want their input on things that I have missed, or if I have items on my list that don't really apply to our size city. And then we'll take that and we'll start working out workflow. So that's kind of next steps. And we did talk about at leadership if, you know, just getting the process started. And if through some of our services, we find that we could utilize this for say something like building inspections or plumbing inspections or something like that, we can add to it, but at least get something started. So sidewalks, you know, animals, other things can be at least starting to be reported through that program.
Curb cuts.
Curb cuts.
It'd be a nice use of that.
Gonna write it down. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. IT's just really waiting on me, I think, to get the list and start working on a workflow. And I would want leadership's input on that, so. All I got, Constance.
All right. So are we moving on? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So discussion of our powers and duties. Should I read them out loud? Is there a printout? Have people look them over?
No, I did email them to you guys. Some have them, I think, Constance.
Perfect. I did look up the email and that's what I'm looking at right
Yeah.
now.
I did the same thing.
So the commission shall have the following powers and duties. One is to advise and make recommendations to the city council and city staff on matters related to Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Title II of the ADA specifically relates to the City of Lewiston programs, activities, and services. The second is to become familiar with Title II of the ADA and the status of existing City of Lewiston programs, services, and facilities related to the ADA. Number 3, consider concerns and or issues brought before the Disability Advisory Commission by citizens related to accessibility in the city or the ADA as related to the city. Seek opportunities to discuss accessibility issues with citizens and become familiar with opinions on accessibility issues. Direct ADA complaints to the appropriate City of Lewiston staff. Develop relationships with organizations that serve individuals with disabilities as defined by the ADA. Assist and actively engage in educational efforts and outreach activities related to Title II of the ADA that are led by the City of Lewiston or its partners. And to develop a work plan that consists of goals and objectives for the Disability Advisory Commission on an annual basis. Is there any discussion on any of those points?
I don't think there is, Constance. You could probably move on to just then discussing your goals.
Perfect. So does anybody have any goals that they would like to see us work on in 2025? Obviously, transportation issues.
I think one of the major goals, it seems, just kind of organically developing is our desire to have, some sort of reporting software that is responsive to the needs of the community and can rapidly deploy that information to the appropriate channels. I know that's underneath one of the, powers and duties of us as a commission to begin with, but I do think that that needs to be a goal of us to help kind of maintain that focus in that direction.
And even if there was a way that we could help spread the word, so to say, on Optimize.
Right, I actually like that as well, so making sure that we can communicate effectively to the community how to utilize or how to access and then utilize whatever software optimize, whatever we end up putting together. Outreach.
I think a lot of us hold a very unique position where we're able to reach out to organizations and the like of people who would really benefit from this software and educate on it, or even just, yeah. I like that as a goal. Do we need to make a motion to make that a goal?
I
Well,
don't think so.
because we'll be discussing it next month as a part of the mayor's requested review, and one of it is an action plan for the future. We could be brainstorming this month and then carry forward those ideas for adoption next month.
I like that.
So I don't think we have to vote on anything today. Since we'll do it all over. Madam Chair, you reading those 8 different things, which I haven't given a lot of time to absorb all of them, but there seems to be the hard ones and the soft ones. There seems to be the ones that are driven by the ADA itself, the city's transition plan, complaints, city staff, those sorts of things, which are things that are on paper, things that are trackable. And then you have the soft ones, the educational efforts, outreach activities, building relationships. I think in the early days of this commission, we attempted to do more of that. We had, a booth at the county fair. We did those kind of things. I think in our efforts to work closely with Public Works and Dustin, we've let that languish a bit. I'm wondering if, of course, we're just all volunteers, so our time is limited. But it doesn't really say here that we dump that kind of work on staff, except for number 7, which is curiously worded. Assist and actively engage in educational efforts and outreach activities related to ADA that are led by the city of Lewiston or its partners. So the language of that duty definitely puts us in a secondary role, but that's assuming that there's other stuff going on. Anyway, for those who have been on the commission for quite a while, like Mike and Eric, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm wondering if we should come up with a tangible, something measurable by the end of the year. We're going to publish a booklet or brochure, or we're going to give so many speeches in the community, or we're going to just something along those relationship building and educational efforts goals, because otherwise we're just giving it lip service.
I just had a thought.
Hmm?
What if you said brochure? Probably gonna put all this work on myself, but like, we've had the library come here and talk about their ADA, we've had Parks and Rec come here and talk about their ADA components. You've got Public Works and Transit. I mean, would that be worth it to put together some sort of brochure of all of the city's combined ADA resources and be able to have that accessible to the community?
I know many people that would benefit from something like that.
Well, and then that's like a brochure that organizations could have and be able to give out.
I think it would need to work in partnership with having that on a website, too.
Okay.
I agree.
A separate website, but for people who think it should only be a website, we always have to remind people of those who don't use the computer. And
I mean, we could reference the website page on the brochure. But that would also, create some relationships with organizations that serve individuals with disability by having some sort of connection.
when I have thought about this subject, one thing that bogs me down in my own brain is the challenge and the squishiness of defining what a disability is and attempting to serve the needs of that community. I would say the majority of the time, the projects and topics in this forum are physical disabilities, curb cuts, people in wheelchairs, physical disabilities. I guess I could include, in addition, blindness and deafness. We don't talk too much about cognitive disabilities. And not to throw a monkey wrench in all of this, one could ask the question about getting people home from the hospital. What does that have to do with anything to do with disability, really? That's just a person who's low income and doesn't have any friends or family to call. So,
Well, that's where I think a lot of like cognitive disabilities are people who end up at the hospital and they don't even know who they can call.
oh yeah, I mean, we've gotten to the point now that it's almost a daily basis at Interlink. Someone calling in or walking into our office and they're just lost. They have a Medicare problem, a Medicaid problem, a landlord problem. I mean, and it's like, we don't do those things, but let us help you to the best of our ability. But you do have to ask yourself, what disability are you attempting to address? And I think that's critical for Nikki's idea that, I can, survey all the different departments. As we've talked about before, how do we help people with disabilities? Well, what kind of disabilities?
Well, I mean, Title II is specific to programs, services, and processes. And so I guess my idea when you said brochure was that you're basically, instead of the community trying to search for it, you're communicating to the community what you're providing so that they know the services that they can seek from the city. That was
They'd
kind of-
also know in advance whether or not they're gonna go to the library because they can't get into the student thing.
Yeah,
They can get in because, so the library is taking part and participating in this Obviously, the library is not a good example
Mhm.
because it's gonna be the first place to hopefully be focused on that. But then that would give people the opportunity to recognize things that are going to be ADA compliant for them to be able to do in the community at large.
Yeah, I mean, does everybody know that the library has like at-home delivery,
Delivery
or that the
services,
libraries
yeah.
are all connected? So if you're not able to get to the Lewiston Library, you know, there are other ways to,
And we're increasing community, which is really what the whole point of this is.
yeah.
I would like to continue to look into that, but that's obviously not gonna be solved today, but I think that.
Well, because then in that brochure, you could also communicate this commission. And one of those things was addressing concerns from citizens
But
on
no one
EDA
ever comes,
issues.
but no one ever comes to us because they don't know we exist.
Yeah,
Right.
so if you're putting it out there that, you know, if you have an ADA concern within the city, within our abilities, you know, bring it to the commission's attention because we may not be aware of it, you know.
Be able to help rattle the cage.
I'm waiting for electrified doors at the community center.
Oh, I
You know that, right?
looked into
When
it.
I saw someone in a wheelchair struggling to get in to vote.
I looked
and they
into it,
couldn't- Oh, there's an answer then, right? We'll talk after.
yeah.
But it's a voting place. The person in the wheelchair couldn't get the door open. I mean, it was horrible to witness, really.
Yeah, I reached out to facilities about that one, so we can talk afterwards.
Yeah, I do like the idea of increasing, you know, the community.
Awareness.
Outreach
I
and
do think that
awareness.
that's a good goal to have.
Mhm. Well, it's actually a purpose. So I think for our plan for 2025, we'd have to be more specific than just say increase awareness.
Right.
About how
So brochure with a more robust web presence. And then how do we take it beyond that? We're not gonna commit advertising dollars to advertise, but I mean, some of us visit care facilities and visit organizations and visit people on a regular basis. Just, you know, tell us what you want us to say or do and we'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was thinking that, you know, like there are things that won't cost a lot of money from the city's like social media.
That's it, Facebook.
Hmm.
You know, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we've got police
E-newsletters,
department, yeah,
magazines.
e-newsletter, magazine, where things are already going in there. This is just one more thing that you're added to. I mean, the information could be made available to, or is it the Disability Action Center, or flyers with the fire department, or, you know, have it at the library as a resource. There's locations that you could put, you know.
Well, and a lot of times, like the Disability Action Center will do things like transition fairs up at the high school and job fairs, stuff like that, all sorts of different opportunities to be able to get that information out.
Yeah, and maybe the public information officer would be willing to help me.
Yeah, if you got Carol all the information, she could
She could put it
a
into,
beautiful, sure.
Yeah, like a trifold or
But you
something.
probably have good locations to it too. You know, even doctor's offices, pediatric
Mhm.
offices.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because already I've got parks, library, transit, public works, disability action. We could promote civic optimize. You know, you've already got a bunch of information to be able to communicate. We could, for the parks, we could identify what parks have ADA playground equipment. You know, Pioneer's getting ADA equipment and, you know, Sunset Park, so. we could-
And just recreational programs.
And recreational programs, yeah.
I think as a part of our education and outreach about the commission itself, we need to double down and emphasize our vision and mission statement that you have there on the bottom of your agenda, because they're still valid. They're not outdated. There's nothing wrong with them. The vision is very broad, that we want people of all abilities and ages fully integrated. And the mission is twofold. The one that Eric always talks about, advising city leaders. But then you have and promotion of full accessibility through education and advocacy. So you're back to that, which is within our goals anyway. And I'm just feeling that maybe the last couple of years or so, we haven't done the education part very robustly. So that's something, that can be on our plan.
Yeah,
But if
and-
we can be more specific about it, not just lip service.
Well, and maybe like as far as partnerships, you identify who are our partners. You know, like, I don't know that we've ever had like Disability Action Center come and talk about, what are you seeing? What's affecting your,
I think we
You know,
did in the
customers.
first year. I think you did in the first year before you were associated, and we were meeting at the Bell Building. I seem to recall.
but like, are there any other partners that we would want to know that you guys are here?
Yeah, some of us are represented already here,
Yeah.
you know, OUI and, Interlink. But just because you're here doesn't mean everyone knows what people do. The veteran services would be a very interesting group of people to hear from. Because when veterans turn to them, it's either due to a disability or due to a funding issue or things of that nature. And of course, they specifically have a separate organization called Disabled American Veterans, DAV. So, you know, that would be interesting. And I wonder if the health department does anything. I mean, I haven't heard that they have any kind of a educator or special program specific, except fit and fall proof, the balance exercise classes that they teach. But yeah, that's not a bad idea either. Identify partners, both public, nonprofit, and then if you want to get into the for-profit area, you have all the home health agencies and all the care facilities and things of that nature. I sit on the board of guardianship for the county. That's a county program. And I mean, we have the highest caseload per capita in the state of Idaho. We have a number of Nez Perce County wards who we have placed in facilities out of the valley, out of the county, because there's no appropriate place for them locally. This is not an ideal situation. I'm assigned to oversee a ward in a facility in Hayden Lake, that far away. So obviously I don't get up there that often, but it's, I don't know what to say. It's just awareness. We just turned down a whole bunch of applications last night because we simply don't have the capacity. But we could bring in our chairman to talk about the issues of guardianship. By definition, they're disabled. They can't care for themselves.
Right.
And this is a huge and growing problem. Huge. So that's public. That's a county commission. So that'd be on the public, but yeah, just starting that list of our partners and then starting dialogue. I mean, even to the point, I don't know who all you send our agenda out to. At one time, it was this
Huge media
huge list,
list, yeah.
including up in Spokane. I'm sure the
Yeah.
TV stations love to get it. But you pared that down.
Yeah,
But maybe our agenda should be going to home health agencies and care facilities and other entities that may see a topic that they'd like to weigh in on. Not likely too often, but just so they know that this exists and they, you know, we welcome their voice.
And yeah. I think it's likely to end up being just another piece of correspondence in an email inbox, unfortunately, in that case. But I think that if we can work through the brochure website, social media presence, I think we can really get some networking that we have not yet had. And I think that could lead to identifying and cooperating more extensively with our partners as what we're saying.
is there some sort of disability advisory commission for the county?
No.
Do you know who their ADA coordinator is?
Wow.
Should be able to look at their website and see.
I'm not aware that they have one, but to the extent that
They have
Eric
a,
says,
they have a 509.
they all have to have one.
507, 509 plan. they don't have an ADA transition plan. They call the 509 theirs. I don't recall if they have a specific one. I've actually said, yeah, it's probably time for me to file a Department of Justice complaint on it, but they're building the new courthouse, which has a lot of improvements. in it.
Yeah.
So I've held off on that. So I don't know.
Yeah, you do have to applaud them for that.
Yeah, I am. That's why I'm not doing anything.
Had to go. Sorry, you guys.
Thank you.
Well, should we table this as a discussion item for the next
Well,
month?
yeah, continue it. I mean, I think these are all good ideas and we can get them typed up in the minutes, think about them and hopefully bring back something more, ideas more substantial in February. Wow, I don't know what to do with the mayors. I know we're not. Analysis of shared responsibilities with other advisory boards and commission.
That's from city code.
I know it
Yeah.
is, but, not city departments. That's what's interesting. Shared responsibilities. If they're looking for redundancies in order to abolish certain commissions, I mean, it has me slightly concerned, but.
All right, so we will continue this discussion for the next. Do I need to make a motion for that or? Can we? Nope. All right, so do we have time for minutes? I know it's getting on time.
Let's approve the minutes for both as presented. Second.
All right, any discussion on the matter? Mark?
I didn't see anything glaring.
I see underlined.
Oh,
Amended to
If under, in December meeting, on the bottom of the first page where I brought up about a special committee and Dustin was going to look into it, any future person reading this might wonder, why did I bring it up? What's the connection? If a sentence could be added, Rhea, that Mike Feeney and I represented this commission on that special task force. That's the linkage. Just for historical purposes, that we were the representatives of this commission to that task force, and that's why we'd like to know where the recommendation came from. Or
motion,
went to.
motion amended to add that sentence to the minutes as reflected.
That's the only thing.
I would second to approve that.
all right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
I,
Looks like we might have a pretty decent agenda for next time. So we don't need any future ones. Any commissioner comments?
Was nice to have that input today from the folks that were there, so that was pretty valuable.
do you know the name of the gentleman who was?
Yeah, Chris Usher, he's the transit supervisor.
All right, any staff liaison comments?
I have none.
None. All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let us know when we're disconnected.
Oh.